This is Duke University.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome. It's great to have all of you here. And I'm sorry to interrupt your conversations. I know you're having a great time, which is the whole point of reunion. So thanks for being here. I'm Erin Gash. I'm Director of Alumni Relations and Annual Giving here at Fuqua. And I'm so pleased to welcome you back to campus. Thank you all for coming here and helping us celebrate all the fun things about Fuqua. We're so glad to have you back. And thank you also for coming this morning for a couple of important things. We're going to spend some time recognizing some of our key alumni volunteers with some awards. And then we're also going to hear some remarks from our Dean Bill Boulding. And so thanks for being here. We'll have time also for a question and answer session during Bill's remarks, so hopefully you'll have some good things to ask him. I also wanted to promote a couple of events that are coming up outside of Fuqua that are happening around the world. We have an event in Chicago coming up on May 16th with Bill. He's going to sit down and do kind of a fireside chat with Carl Stern. He's the Vice Chairman of Investment Banking for Goldman Sachs, and he's the former CEO of BCG. We're very excited about that event. If you're in the Chicago area on May 16th, we hope you'll join us. And in New York on May 29th, we're having a similar event with Duncan Niederauer. He is the CEO of the New York Stock Exchange NYSE Euronext, and he's going to have a wonderful conversation with Bill there too. So if you're in the New York area on May 29th, please join us. And now we're going to go ahead and get started with some awards for some of our great alumni. If we could go ahead and pull up the first slide. Thank you. So our first award is going to one of our alums who's actually, unfortunately, not here today. So I'm going to briefly tell you about Brian Doerksen. Brian is a member of our Board of Visitors. He's daytime MBA 78. He serves as Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Deloitte. And he grew up in Canada. He went to the University of Saskatchewan. And after he graduated from Fuqua, he's one of the few Fuquans who's in the same job that he had when he left. Not the same job, the same firm that he's in when he left. Not the same. That wouldn't be something to be excited about. I'm glad he's not here now. So in 1978, he joined Deloitte, and he's been there ever since. And he's been in a number of leadership roles for Deloitte. He's been very dedicated to Fuqua. He's served on our Board of Visitors for a long time, and he's also been chair of our Finance Committee of the board, which is a very important job and one that requires a lot of dedication and attention to detail, which we would hope a Deloitte person would have. Brian was here for the Board of Visitors meeting a few weeks ago, and we gave his award to him in front of the board and in front of our faculty and staff. So we're very excited that he was able to receive that then. But let's give a round of applause for Brian, who's on here today. And I neglected to mention Brian's award was the award for exemplary service. So we really thank him for that. We're going to move on to one of our award winners who actually is here today. And this is another award for exemplary service. And this award is going to go to Christian Hyman, Daytime MBA 08. And I'm supposed to be driving this, so I'm going to go ahead. There's a picture of Christian with his family. So Christian is Managing Director of Executive Search at Vaco Raleigh. He has executed retained executive services for searches for clients in a wide variety of industries, and he's worked with firms like Aetna, Cigna, Gap, HP, New York Life. He has a BA in English and a BS in Management from the University of Massachusetts. He was a summa cum laude graduate of that institution. And he's also a 4-year Division I rugby player, which I thought was an interesting fact. In his spare time, Christian enjoys boxing, hiking, reading, and of course staying engaged with his beautiful family and working with men and women with disabilities. He and his wife, Lindsay, and son, Andrew, live in Durham. And Christian was nominated not by one person or 2 people or 3 people, but 4 people for this award. So it's pretty impressive that all parts of the Fuqua organization, both alumni, students, staff, and faculty, saw him as a worthy award winner. They said he uses his position and influence to help our Fuqua students and alumni with career opportunities, as well as continue to foster and build ties with the Fuqua community. He has been the epitome of a leader of consequence, someone who is committed to the service of others. He's helped Cole, the Center on Leadership and Ethics, build its board, and he's been instrumental in helping the Cole Leadership Fellows Program launch an alumni initiative to help alumni work with the current Cole Fellows. He participates in career panels at Blue Devil Weekend. He organizes alumni outings. He works to engage students and alumni. And another interesting fact is that one of our faculty members said that he's taught more than 1,700 students since arriving at Fuqua in 2006. but he considers Christian the person who has been his most important contact in the Fuqua network. I think that's pretty high accolades. So we want to say thank you to Christian for all that he's given to the school and all that he's done. So please come forward so I can give you your official award. Our next award goes to Warren Farr, and he's a member of the Daytime MBA class of 1993. Warren is the president and CEO of Refrigeration Sales Corporation of Valley View, Ohio, and it is a privately owned wholesaler, which is a trademarked term that I learned about, of heating, ventilating, air conditioning, and refrigeration equipment, and it has about $80 million in annual revenues. Warren's a double Dookie. He has a BS in Computer Science and Physics from Duke, class of 1984. And in addition to his MBA from Fuqua, Warren has a Master of Science degree from the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, specializing in system dynamics. Warren has had a variety of roles throughout his career in computer networking technologies and in that industry, and he had been a software engineer before joining Refrigeration Sales Corporation, working on military command, control, and communication systems. Relevant to that background, Warren, in his spare time, designs and builds high-powered amateur rockets, which I think is kind of neat because my son likes to shoot those up. But one of his actually goes over a mile in distance in the air. So that's pretty cool to me, I think. He's been nominated by 2 individuals. One of them is a Daytime MBA student in the class of 2013, and one was a faculty member, Penn's son, who's part of our decision sciences area. And they said, Warren has shown exemplary dedication to Fuqua and is an alumnus who makes a real difference, not only in his everyday corporate setting, but also for generations of Fuqua students. And Penn said, Warren developed a teaching case based on strategic development using system dynamics tools, based on his own experience as a business leader in the durable goods industry. And since 2007, Warren has been coming back to campus to speak in Penn's classes. He pays his own way from Ohio, and he helps teach a case that's relevant actually to his work, and it's about strategic modeling and business dynamics. And every year, Penn says that her students consider Warren the best guest speaker they ever had for their entire 2 years at Fuqua. The passion that Warren demonstrates through contributing his wisdom, time, and energy definitely deserves recognition. So thank you, Warren, for being here. Is Warren here? Warren, there you are. Great. Hi. Thank you. Our next award member is also a member of the Daytime MBA class of 08. They've had a banner year this year. This is JD Luba Netsky. Did I pronounce that right, JD? Okay. JD is the senior director in the consulting group at Wasserman Media, a sports and entertainment marketing company, and he's based in their Raleigh office. Very recently, he was with their LA office before that. So glad to be back in the area. While at Wasserman, JD has consulted a number of clients in their sports and music marketing efforts, including Nokia, T-Mobile, American Express, and Scott's Miracle-Gro. Prior to Fuqua, JD was a consultant for KPMG Consulting and Bearing Point in the financial division. He has a BA in finance from James Madison University. He's originally from Gaithersburg, Maryland, and now he lives here in Durham. He was nominated by Angela Eberts, who is Associate Director of our MMS Career Services area. And Angela said, I'm nominating JD for this award based on his generous contributions of personal time and professional expertise to Fuqua programs. He's mentored students, he's served as a panelist at career events, he's filled other crucial roles in the Wasserman Media Case Competition, he's served on a Blue Devil Weekend panel on sports, entertainment, and media. And really importantly, JD has involved his agency colleagues, his clients, and his industry contacts in many of the student events. And this is really great because our students don't get a lot of exposure to this tightly knit industry that doesn't traditionally recruit at Fuqua. And so networking is key, and JD's really opened doors for a lot of our students in that networking area. She said, he is amazingly easy to work with and exemplifies the ideal alum. So JD, thanks for all you do for Fuqua. We really appreciate it. And our final award today is actually a rather new award that was created a couple of years ago by our students from Net Impact, which is a student club that's focused on supporting the community, nonprofit work, sustainability, and they created a Leader of Consequence Award. And this year's award is going to Paula Alexander, Daytime MBA 98. Paula is Director of Sustainable Business and Innovation for Health and Beauty Care, the Health and Beauty Care brands at Burt's Bees, and that's based here in Durham. Paula has been with Burt's Bees since 2006. She's had a variety of leadership roles in brand development, marketing, and global insights, and she joined the Burt's Bees leadership team in 2011. Paula's role is to make sure that Burt's Bees prioritizes sustainability in all business functions at all levels. She's president of the Burt's Bees Greater Good Foundation, which focuses on programs that promote community development and environmental health while reinforcing the brand mission. She began her career in brand management at Unilever. She worked on a variety of brands, and she also worked on the campaign for Real Beauty, which has recently had a lot of new press, which is really exciting. So it's neat to think that you were there at the beginning, Paula. And she's worked on projects that span the globe in North America, Europe, and Asia. She holds a BBA in marketing from Texas A&M. She's a frequent guest speaker at many industry conferences and business schools on topics such as corporate social responsibility and careers in brand management and market intelligence. Paula lives here in the area in Chapel Hill with her husband, Bruce, who's a Daytime MBA class of 97 grad, and their 8-year-old son, Nate, and their Great Dane, Dharma. She was nominated by 2 people for this award, by Dan Baum, who's Daytime MBA 2012, and by Russ Morgan, who's in the audience, Daytime MBA 88, and he's Associate Dean for our Daytime program. And they said, Paula identifies and implements new and better ways for Burt's Bees to make a positive difference through their business, exemplifying the meaning of a leader of consequence. She has committed many days of speaking to our market intelligence classes, and she's always provided great insights as well as energy, even when it's her 4th presentation of the day. She's helped us run focus groups and help give career advice to students to help them understand the opportunities they have in front of them. And she's been involved in lots of career conferences. She's passionate about Fuqua and is always willing to step up no matter when and how often we ask. She has undoubtedly made Fuqua a better place. So thank you, Paula, for all that you do for Fuqua. If I could I have all of our award winners come back and take a photo with the dean? If all 4 of you would come forward, that'd be wonderful. Quick shot with Bill. We have to, put the moment in posterity here. All right, Jared's going to get ready. How many MBAs does it take to organize for a photo? Thank you, Jared. Is that good? Okay, thanks. All right, now very quickly, I'm going to introduce our Dean, Bill Boulding, who for many of you needs no introduction because many of you probably had Bill as a professor. Bill is the Dean and J.B. Fuqua Professor of Business Administration here, and he's served in almost every role that there is at Fuqua. He's been Deputy Dean, he's been Senior Associate Dean for Programs, Associate Dean for the Daytime MBA program, and he also has taught many, many of our students. Before reunion, we run a list of all the students who are coming back, and it's lengthy. You probably had him for strategy or for marketing, so many of you remember him in the classroom. He has his bachelor's in economics from Swarthmore and his PhD in marketing from the Wharton School. And recently, Bill and Rick Stalen, one of our marketing faculty, did one of our Fuqua faculty conversations about their current research. So if you didn't get a chance to tune in live, it is recorded on our alumni website if you'd like to see Bill in action back in the classroom. Bill has been Dean of the Fuqua School since 2011, is that right? Okay, good. See, I'm being quizzed here. Did not write that part down. And I've had the opportunity to work with him very closely in supporting our development and alumni relations initiatives, which he has been wonderful at doing. And so I appreciate the time you have with us today, Bill. Thank you for being here. And we'll let him speak and then save some time for questions at the end. Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Thank you, Erin. So thank you all so much for coming this weekend, for being in here this morning when it's such a beautiful day. A special shout out to the class of 78, which is disproportionately represented. But I have to start by saying what an incredible privilege it is to be the dean of this amazing institution. And I've gone through a transition that's been a little bit confusing for me, which is that I was announced as dean earlier this spring. And the confusing part was I was dean, and then I was announced as dean. And so the day before the announcement, I was doing the same thing as I was doing the day after the announcement. But what I've discovered is that this has been a really difficult thing for people to kind of process. And so I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, well, congratulations, you're now officially the dean, or now you're really the dean, or you're not just that temp anymore. And so it's been very, very interesting to realize that while I was doing the job, that people actually thought that this too will pass, and we could move on to the next person. So that's been really really interesting. And all I'll say is you can say anything you want. I just hope you don't want to say oh crap. But the other thing that's changed for me as a result of this announcement is because people did wonder, well, what would the future dean be? Who would it be? What would they do? That they were giving me a pass. I didn't realize that people were letting me get by in terms of their expectations around what we would be doing here at Fuqua. And as soon as the announcement came out, all of a sudden people said, okay, now what are you going to do? And so what I want to talk to you about today is what we want to do. And I want to talk about really the three priorities we have, say a little bit about how I think we're making progress towards those goals, and then really just thank you all for helping us achieve those goals. So three priorities. First priority is to create a shared sense of identity, ambition, and purpose. Second priority is to make sure that we improve in terms of executing against those goals so that we can fulfill those goals and fulfill them at a rapid pace. The third priority is investing in our future. So let me talk about those three things. So the first priority is really quite simple for me, which is I think that we need to have an ambition to be the best business school in the world. And the reason I say we need to have that ambition is that we're in a business too. And the reality is that nobody has to go to business school to go into business. And so we have to justify the tuitions that we charge in terms of the value that each of you receive and the value that your organizations receive when they hire you or in the companies that you start yourselves. And so we have to be able to create value. And the world is changing in a way where there's intense pressure to move up to be able to deliver higher and higher levels of value. And if you don't, you're going to be irrelevant. And so we actually had a group of BCG analysts who did some pro bono work for us. Is Brock out there somewhere? There he is. Okay, so a shout out to Brock. Where he led a team that did some really interesting analysis of the business school industry. And one of the things that came out loud and clear from the analysis that they did was that there is a flight to quality. That if you are not one of the top business schools, what you will see, what we have seen over a 10-year horizon, is a dramatic decline in applications. And so if you look at, say, the top 30 schools in aggregate, you see applications are relatively flat for those schools. But if you start to look at quality segments, what you see is you fall outside the bottom 15, or the top 15, excuse me. You fall outside the top 15, and you start to see applications dropping, and dropping at a fairly rapid rate. And so you have to be among the best set, or you will be irrelevant, because there are lots of other options now that are coming available that are low cost, either through technology or because of shifts in the global landscape in terms of those options. So we have to do it because we need to, or we're irrelevant. But maybe even more important is that we should have that ambition. Not just because we need to, but we should, because if we think about the role for business in the world today, business enters into every challenge that we face. There is a connecting point through business that will make a difference. And so we can use business leaders to change the world for the better. And so if we think we have that opportunity, then we have an obligation to actually seize that, to push in terms of developing the leaders who will make a difference in all kinds of ways in order to make a better world. And so that's a simple goal. And if we are the best business school in the world, it means that we're producing people like you who truly are making a difference. And what you have to do is you have to juxtapose that opportunity with the reality that we now face, which is I'm saying that through business we can make a difference at the same time that the perceptions of business leaders is at an all-time low. People study in a quantitative sense the levels of trust that they have in different groups of people. And guess what? We're now down there with politicians. And so, yeah, I'm so sorry. Now, I'm not talking about all of you, and I'm not talking about our alums, who I think deserve an enormous amount of respect and trust. But the reality is that we're operating in a world where the general public believes that business leaders are not trustworthy. And so we have this obligation to really shift that belief through the actions that all of you will take in your careers. So that's the ambition. We should be the best. Now, in terms of how are we going to execute against that goal, that's not a simple thing to do. I mean, so we've been floating in the kind of the way I put it, the bottom of the top. So the bottom of the top 10, and so we're in that top 10 region. Sometimes we fall outside the top 10 a little bit. And it's a fragile position to be in. And now we're saying we don't want to be there. We want to move up. And that's not simple when you're facing really great competitors. So we do have some advantages, though. And so I want to talk about those advantages and our priorities around how we can make those advantages even better. So what is our unique basis of competing with these really great institutions so we are the best of all those institutions? The first thing I want to point to as a significant advantage is this thing we've known as Team Fuqua for many, many years. And Team Fuqua is it's an interesting concept, because if we went around and we asked all of you, what does Team Fuqua mean, I'd probably get a different answer from each and every one of you. And that actually is a problem that we have to address that issue, because we all understand it, but we all describe it in a different way. But it's the values that we hold dear, and it's the culture of the institution. And it shows up, for those of you who did take strategy from me, I've always talked about culture in and of itself is not a competitive advantage unless it's value generating. But it is value generating for us, because people understand what this place means and they want to be a part of it. And so they understand that if you come to Fuqua, if you want to be a part of Team Fuqua, that first of all, you do want to make a difference in the lives of others, that you're not starting from a position of narrow self-interest, but rather you want to change the organization that you're in. You want to change your community. You do want to make a difference. You want to have a life not just that is successful, but significant. And so we're attracting people who have the right values, and then they understand if they come here, it's because they understand that they can't do things on their own. They have the humility to recognize that to do something really great in the world, you have to do it with and through other people. And if you're going to do something really great, you need to do it with and through other people who may not be just like you. And so that you need to take advantage of collaboration, but collaboration across traditional boundaries. And being able to tap into and draw from people to establish common ground to take advantage of the differences that exist. and to understand that no one who's a part of our community is entitled to anything. There's no sense of entitlement, but a realization that you have to work your butt off if you want to accomplish anything, that you're going to have to work hard and nothing will be given to you. But that if you put all this together, you can accomplish extraordinary things. And so we've created a virtuous cycle in terms of we have the alumni who exhibit those values in what they do in their organizations and their communities. We have the students who exhibit those values, and it attracts the new students to come in. And so we start with the right stuff. Now, the issue we have is we are not competitive with those great schools in terms of the number of applications that we have. We don't get the same level. What Barack and his team identified is that over a 10-year horizon, when I talk about that flight to quality, that we're gaining share. We're actually outperforming the top 5 schools in terms of attracting applications. So the growth is better than anybody, but the base is not close to where those great schools are. And so we have to figure out, as we talk about ourselves and we talk about these values and this culture, we need to come up with common labels that describe this experience so that people can tell their stories, because we don't want the stories to go away. That's what's really sticky. And so one of the things that we're working on across a wide variety of groups is how do we generate the kind of top-line labels or descriptions of who we are in a way that creates some consistency around this positioning that we have, because we really do have a unique environment here. And so we want to have that consistency and then allow for the idiosyncrasies around the actual experiences that people have had. And so we want to keep pushing on that. The other thing that I think is really important for us to push on is, I talked about this flight to quality and having to migrate to higher and higher levels of value added. Well, another way that I think we have to actualize that is that the highest value added, in my opinion, is through leadership. And so if we really want to make a difference, it will be through leadership, and that's going to be the most valuable thing for you and for the different organizations that our alums work for in terms of their ability to really change things and create value. And so this is another example of where I think we've got fantastic students. We certainly have fantastic alums, but we want to keep pushing in terms of, can we give a leadership development experience that will be second to no other school in the world? And here we want to come back to a very basic concept where Team Fuqua again is value generating, which is we've always believed that if we work together as a community to co-create experiences, that we can do better. And the next step that we want to take around leadership development is that we want to co-create something that involves all of you. Maybe not all of you, but we want to draw from our alums, which is we want to figure out how do we bring in the wisdom of our alumni body in terms of providing the mentoring to our current students to help them understand the kinds of challenges that all of you have dealt with. You've been there, you've done that. You can give advice and you can give the wisdom that I think our students could benefit from tremendously. And so that's another area that is of real importance to us in terms of really taking an asset which we think is best in class and using the value of that asset to make it even better. The next area where I think we have a tremendous advantage is what I'll call connectivity, or another way I talk about it is I think we have a location advantage. And the location advantage is a little bit funny in the following sense, which is I think we live in the most beautiful place here. And when we have students here, I think they enjoy this tremendously. But we also have to recognize that Durham, North Carolina is not the center of the business universe. You're laughing at that? Okay, so it is true. It is not the center of the business universe. It may be the intellectual center of the universe, but no. So Tom Keller recognized that many years ago, and he said, if we are going to be relevant as a global business school, we're going to have to go out into the world. And so we made a decision many years ago to say we want to be connected to the world. We want to be connected to the places that really will change the world in the future and are changing the world as it exists today. And so we took those ideas that Tom had from many years ago. More recently, we've used the words embedded and connected, which is we want to be embedded in these regions that really will change the world, are changing the world. And the reason we want to be there is we want to take our faculty and our students and our staff, and we want to put them in these places because we feel like if we don't do that, we will never understand or learn those places if we just sit here in Durham. And so if we're in those places, we will learn them, our faculty will do the research of relevance, our students will get the developmental experiences of relevance, and we'll be able to teach the students in ways that are relevant to prepare them for the world that we live in. And so this is a point of differentiation for us, which is we made a decision to be globally distributed as opposed to saying we want everyone to come to Durham and everyone will stay in Durham, and I actually don't think you can be the intellectual center of the universe from one place because knowledge is so widely dispersed and there are differences across the world. But don't forget the connected part, which is we need people who are dispersed but also see the common threads in a way that help all of us understand how do these things fit together in a way that we can produce the people who will be more effective global leaders. So we're not going to back off of this idea that we need to be a global business school and that we need to be embedded and connected in these different regions. I don't think you should expect to see campuses like the one that is close to completion in China. I don't think you should expect to see additional campuses in terms of physical bricks and mortar in the near term, certainly. We have to digest what's happening in China. But we will continue to push to have a global footprint that creates meaningful relationships around the world so that our students can have those experiences, so our faculty can learn more and therefore teach better, and so that we can build the relationships with the people that matter in these regions, with the firms that matter, the organizations more broadly, government leaders, and so on, such that we can provide a rich context. And so, the China campus, just as an update, it should be physically completed within about a year, and we plan, subject to ministry approval, final approval in China, to open that campus in the fall of 2014. And for the business school, the first activity that we'll have on the ground on that campus will be the Master of Management Studies program. What I think is going to be a phenomenal opportunity is not just for the MMS program that will run there, but what are we going to do for the daytime students, for the global students, the cross-continent students, the weekend students, all of our student populations in terms of using this new asset that we will have in a really important part of the world. But we're also going to push ahead in terms of increasing our presence in places where we don't have enough representation in sub-Saharan Africa and in Latin America and in Brazil in particular. And what we've been doing there is we've been leading with putting students and faculty on the ground to build relationships with key organizations in those places so that we can sustain our presence and build reputation in those parts of the world. So that's one dimension, kind of a reverse location advantage. There's a second dimension, which is a little more real in terms of I don't have to twist the story, which is a location advantage in terms of being a part of a great university. And the interesting thing is, if you talk about some of the other great schools, they would probably say pretty much the same thing. I'm sure Harvard and Stanford and Wharton would say they're all part of great universities too. But the thing that's interesting is, for most business schools, they are completely separate from the rest of the university. And we're connected to the rest of the university. And we're connected because the rest of the university actually acknowledges the truth of the statement that business connects into every problem of fundamental interest in the world today. And because the other schools within the university acknowledge that, they don't fear us, they don't want to hold us off, they embrace having the business school be a part of what they do, and in turn, we embrace having them be a part of what we do. And I think the best example of what we have so far is in the health domain. And the interesting thing about that is that it's not just that we're connected to Duke Medicine as making that experience rich, but we're also connected to the law school in terms of health issues, and the policy school in terms of health issues, and the engineering school in terms of health issues. And so we think that that's a tremendous advantage to be able to draw from resources across the university in a way that give our students a broader and more informed view of the landscape, which is subject to massive disruption. And so what we're doing is we're pushing this idea of we want to be in the places where you're going to see massive disruption, where we can be connected to great assets across the university and provide experiences to our students that will be second to none. And so the areas where we're pushing right now are in entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, where that's all been in the past clustered within the business school, and now we're partnered more broadly throughout the university, and in the energy and environment space, where there is tremendous opportunity for us in terms of partnerships with engineering, with the School of the Environment, policy, again, law, and so that we're seeing some real progress here in terms of connecting to these assets in a way that translates into a student experience that puts them in a position to be leaders of consequence. And so that's the connected theme, and those are some of the things in terms of our priorities of how are we going to execute better. I will say that this is an area of focus. It's not easy. If you think about all the things that companies have gone through in terms of siloed organizations, universities make them look great. I mean, universities are incredibly siloed. And so we've been making, I think, tremendous progress in breaking down those silos, but there are still barriers that we have to go through. But the good news is, in a relative sense, we're way ahead of our peers in terms of solving those issues. So then the third thing is investing in our future. So here, too, we have an enormous advantage and we have an enormous handicap. So the enormous advantage is, if you think about investing in your future, you have to have faculty who are great faculty. You have to have faculty who are producing the insights and the ideas that are going to change the future, and you have to have faculty who can translate that into programmatic experiences so that we continue to innovate and invest in changing the experiences that we provide. And so the good news there is that we have the best faculty in the world in that regard. And so the last 3 business weeks, we've been ranked #1 in the world in terms of the faculty. The Financial Times, we're almost always ranked either #1 or #2 in terms of our faculty. And by faculty, what they're typically measuring is intellectual capital or productivity. And so we have this faculty asset, and that's fantastic. Now, not only do they have the smarts to be the leaders in terms of generating intellectual capital, but they also share these values of Team Fuqua around they want to co-create, they want to innovate, they want to make a difference in the lives of others. And so they are unusually willing to do something that is at our core, which is we have to respond to the context of the world. They don't ever want to be ivory tower people. We've always had to respond to that context. And if we're going to keep moving up, we have to continue to respond to the context of the world at a more rapid pace than our peers. And we're lucky that we have a faculty group that is eager to embrace that task. The handicap is our resource base. And so this is the one area where we don't stack up anywhere close to where we should be with our competitors. And so quickly, what I mean by resource base is a simple metric to use is what is our endowment position relative to our peers? And if you use the metric endowment per student, then you begin to understand how this matters. But if you use that endowment per student metric, Harvard and Stanford have $10 or $12 for every single dollar that we have. Wharton, Chicago, Northwestern have $3 for every dollar that we have. Dartmouth has $4.50 for every dollar we have. MIT has $4 for every dollar we have. Virginia has $3.50 for every dollar we have. So these are massive gaps, and they play out in significant ways. I'll give you one focus example, which is around student excellence. Endowment dollars fund scholarships. We have 39% of our scholarships endowed. The competitors I'm talking about have their scholarships all endowed or close to all endowed. What that means is not only do they have money that's covering the scholarships, but you can imagine they can give more scholarship help. And we know that we are not competitive in the scholarship world. That if you think about attracting students, it's a combination of love and money. And luckily, we generate a lot of love because we don't have a lot of money. And at the margins, though, that ends up hurting us in terms of people who say, well, I'm getting a full ride from Virginia, or I'm getting a full ride from all these other places. I can't turn that down. And our resource base is, we're at the bottom of the top 20 in terms of resources, as opposed to being in the top 10. And so what we also know is if you look at our students, the kind of the telling metric around are we giving scholarship support at the levels we need to is to look at a couple other rankings. One ranking is this beautiful place we live in is not very expensive, and when you rank the top 20 schools, these are for daytime programs where you're in residence, if you rank the top 20 schools on cost of attendance, tuition plus cost of living, we come in 4th best. However, if you rank schools in terms of debt load at graduation, we're number 1. And I don't think I'm going to hear any chant going up, we're number 1. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. And part of the reason is that we do give more favorable loan terms than our competitors, but we have to because we're not giving scholarship help. And so this makes a big difference. And it's something where I think, luckily, in terms of creating the investment in our future, that we also have a capital campaign that's going on. And this capital campaign is incredibly important, and to give you kind of a brief update on that, the campaign is a $100 million target. And the target is all about, it's not about building new buildings here or anywhere else in the world. It's all about investing in people, programs, and excellence. And so it's about investing in student excellence, it's about investing in program excellence, and it's about investing in faculty excellence. And we have to push hard. This is an area where you know now that we're way behind, and so we need to be successful with this campaign. The campaign started officially last fall. It ends in June of 2017, so it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I have to tell you that one of the most amazing things about my time as dean has been the response from the community when we call upon them for support. Because we had not been asking for support at the same level that we need to ask, and as a result, we fell way behind. But now we're asking, and as of now, I think we're at 47.4 million in cash and commitments, and we hope to be at 50 million by the end of the fiscal year. And so what that says is that the community has stepped up. When we put this challenge out there, they said, yes, we want to invest in the future. We want to invest in the people that will follow us, and it provides this incredible multiplier in terms of return on an investment. So we've been very, very successful. We've got a long way to go in terms of hitting those goals, and truthfully, my view is that we shouldn't be happy with just hitting that goal. We need to blow by that goal if we actually want to close the gap in any way. I also want to call attention to when you have a campaign and you start talking about millions of dollars, people immediately go, okay, you're talking about someone else. That's not me. But actually, for this campaign, 25 million of that campaign is going to come through annual fund support. And so the dollars that you give through the annual fund are incredibly important. And we're doing very, very well with the annual fund. This year, people, again, have really stepped up in a significant way. But there's one thing I want to feature, which is we have a leadership challenge around the annual fund. And we've been given a challenge by someone who will give us a sizable gift if we can increase the number of people who are giving at the leadership level, which is defined as $1,000 or more in a year. And so we're not at our target yet, and we have to close on that or else we lose out on the challenge money. And so I want to challenge all of you to step up and help us achieve that leadership goal. Because it turns out that in terms of your fundraising, that you can raise the major gift activity and you only have a campaign once every 20 or so years, but the thing that really endures is your annual fund support. And that if you can increase the level of support that you have for annual fund, that is sticky as you move out of the campaign and into the future. And so that's an incredibly important investment you can make in our future. So with that, I think I'm actually at a point where I'm going to spend all the time talking instead of allowing questions. So let me pause and allow you to ask me questions. But thank you all so much for everything you have done and will do in support of the school.
You mentioned about embedding faculty in various business centers, and I was curious as to if you could give a couple examples of what that embedding experience might be.
So the examples are that our faculty are working with students in different parts of the world. So they're holding classes with students in China, in India, in Russia, in the Emirates, in the UK. And now they're holding classes with them in Brazil and in South Africa. And so what happens is those faculty get engaged with the students, and those student activities typically also involve engaging with government leaders, business leaders, NGO leaders from the region. And it gives our faculty a window into the kinds of challenges that are relevant in that part of the world, and it gives them a window into what's different about this place that I need to understand, as well as a window into how do we connect, how do we bridge across these different regions in terms of how we conduct global business. And so that's the basic structure. With the campus in China, you have the ability to allow faculty to actually embed for longer periods of time, where someone might want to stay for a year on that China campus because they know they want to study supply chain management. And it just so happens that there's a huge amount of activity in that region that can inform their research. So those are the kinds of examples that we're pushing for.
Hi, Mike Mattson, the class of 2003. Just a question on the value proposition, because there's really two things you can do. I mean, one is to help people get better jobs and raise their incomes, et cetera, after they get out of school. I guess the other part would be controlling the cost aspect of actually going to school. And with the rate that, and it's not just Duke or Fuqua obviously, but the rate that tuition's been going up, at universities and grad schools is pretty dramatic. And I guess I'm just wondering if there's any effort to try to rein that inflation rate in. And just looking across corporate America, corporate America is doing more with less these days. And they're constantly cutting costs. So, I think part of the problem with grad schools in general is just the cost of tuition is going up so dramatically. And I think that's, if you look at what's going on with the law school world, it's getting really bad there. And so I'm just concerned we could start to really see the same sort of stuff going on in the business school world.
Yeah, so the law school world is more challenging than ours. So this is an interesting contrast where I think we're actually less vulnerable, as a business school, we're less vulnerable to some of the threats to the competitive landscape you see right now, because we've always known we have to be relevant, as opposed to you have to go to a particular school to get a credential, and that's given them kind of a protected position. And so, that's a very interesting difference where the irony is that we're better prepared for kind of a gloves-off competitive landscape. So your point is absolutely well taken, that we can't stop pushing on the value frontier, but there is a real issue around the cost side as well. And I don't think it's sustainable for universities or business schools to keep going up in cost. I mean, it can't go on forever. And so part of what I think is interesting about some of our global activities, and part of the way we go global through the use of technology, is it gives us access to things and ideas that may be able to change our cost structure long term. And so I think it's very important that we have our eyes open to the opportunities for changing the cost structure, because that just hasn't changed as long as I've been in this business, and it's not sustainable. So very, very good point.
Yes, my name is Joe Hines. I'm from the WIMBA 2003 class. Got two little bit separate questions here, but the first one is the loan debt that we have as students versus other schools, and then the endowment, the differential there. And then the second one is, you've mentioned the energy environmental space and entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship space. I work in the economic development world. We help Virginia and North Carolina try to recruit international businesses to come here. Given our worldwide footprint, is that a sector of society that we're looking at, economic development, because that's getting to be a rising sector?
Absolutely. So we have a large number of students who have an interest in that space, and so come back and talk to the people at the Center for the Advancement of Social Entrepreneurship, and we'll get you connected.
First question was regarding the loan debt that our students have versus other schools, and then the endowment. What is the magic number we're trying to reach? What does the UVA have? Harvard have?
Yeah. So UVA has 3.5 times more than we have. Now, this is one of the questions I've been asked: is with this $100 million campaign, are you going to close that gap? Because what we really want to do is we want to be able to be at least in the double digits in terms of the gap, rather than the triple digits and quadruple digits. The problem is that our competitors are not standing still. And so the example with Virginia, I happen to be with the dean at Virginia, and we're comparing notes around capital campaigns. They're in a capital campaign too. But their target is 150 million, not 100. And they haven't raised 47 million, they've raised 137 million. They don't have 17,000 alums, they have 12,000 alums. And so they're, even on this path we're on, that 3.5 multiple is actually going to get bigger. Now, hopefully not every school out there is in the middle of a capital campaign, but it does matter. I mean, when I told this story about Virginia to an alumni group, someone said, I just was talking to a student who was deciding between Virginia and Duke, and Virginia gave her a full ride. She chose Virginia. We lost out to a great student. And so that just isn't acceptable to me.
What is the endowment? I guess my question was, what is their endowment versus their total dollars?
So I don't know the total dollar number, but it's because I scaled it by student, which is the relevant use of the endowment. Yes.
My name is Sitaram Devi, Gamba 2008. It's excellent talk, we appreciate it. One of the challenges that educational institutions are facing is the online education. Does Fuqua have a plan in terms of generating revenues through online education? I see a lot of schools, Stanford is actually a leader in this, they generate a lot of money. They take the same classes that the teachers put in, make them available to wider audiences, charge anywhere between $200 to $1,000 a class. And they also have several online graduate programs. Is Fuqua going into that line so you could actually generate a lot more revenues through that globally, and you could reduce the cost of education for actual students that would come here?
Okay, so that was a lot of questions. So I just gave a talk to the Association of Business Deans. I had 500 people showed up talking about how is technology going to change the competitive landscape. And I gave them some data. So first of all, the reason I was asked to give the talk is that Fuqua was the very first school that went into the online world. And with the introduction of the Global Executive Program, that was the first degree-based program that used online technology to teach the course. So the program. So we are the pioneers in this space. I wouldn't say that we have the lead at this point in terms of where we are in terms of use of technology. We still have things going on in terms of experimentation. So we're in the MOOC, the massively open online course arena. We have a faculty member who is teaching one of those MOOCs. He has 140,000 students signed up. Now, the problem is right now, how do you convert that into cash? And so one of the issues, I've sat around and talked to a lot of different people in educational institutions, and I've heard this conversation so many times. We don't want to make the same mistake with education that people made in the media industry around giving away our content for free and then waking up one day realizing that we'd put ourselves out of business. So the problem with that is, in some ways, it's too late. And what's too late is, so these 140,000 students who are signed up for this MOOC, the faculty member tried to check how many of you are willing to pay for this, and the answer is 0. And the reason the answer is 0 is there's a belief that they are entitled to this for free. And the reason they believe that is it actually has nothing to do with what's been done by universities. It's what's happened on YouTube. That anybody who went through high school, they're trying to learn calculus, let me go to YouTube and I'm going to look at something from Khan Academies. And so the idea is it should all be there, but someone else should pay for it. And so there are big challenges around how do you convert the online model into an effective revenue-generating model. And I'll also say another number going along with 140,000 students is the number of production hours to create that class. 3,000. And so this is not something that is really low cost unless it's scaled to 140,000 people. And so there are big challenges around, is technology actually lower cost in terms of being able to deliver a high quality experience? And you start to limit yourself around the domains that you can have low cost technology, which is it has to be an environment where it's very predictable in terms of the content, and that there's little to be gained from interaction. And so the other thing that happened is that this professor who's teaching 140,000 students is simultaneously teaching 200 students live in here. And he experimented with, instead of having you look at my lectures live, he said, why don't you look at the lecture that I produced online and then we'll talk about it. And this is high-end production with 3,000 hours. He said, this has got to be way better than whatever I do live. But when he asked the students who preferred the live lecture versus preferred the online version, 90% wanted the imperfect, flawed, error-filled live presentation because of the uncertainty about what would happen and because of the ability to engage and interact and actually change the nature of that experience. So there are some things where I think you worry less about those two dimensions, where you do have an opportunity to drive down cost. But what's happened for the online world to try to be able to retain those elements, the degree of interaction and so on, it's actually a very expensive technology to use in education. So but look, I mean, we're on it in terms of we want to be able to figure out how we can use technology to both lower costs and improve value. Oh, okay, Aaron just, I don't really think that was a throat slash, but we have reached the end of the time. So please ask me any other questions, but let's let everybody move on and have lunch and so on. But thank you all so much.